This is a place for lovers of life who believe joy is the most powerful biohack of all. Welcome to the Mama Mudra podcast, a love letter to those ready to redefine success as vitality, connection, and calm. Today we are talking about the psychology of music to evoke happiness. So the whole journey, as everyone will know by now, I think, is that I believe that the future of wellness is happiness. And if we make happiness our goal, it is easier to find and follow a consistent wellness routine, which ultimately then brings us the benefits. But in finding your journey and your pathway to happiness, there's so many different components that I'm trying to bring in experts onto the podcast that can speak to the various different parts of that journey. So we have had experts so far that speak to utilizing biohacking tools to find wellness. We have spoken to experts that have given us insight into finding their happiness in business and entrepreneurship. We have brought in experts that have spoken about brain health and brain types and how to use that to gain a stronger understanding of where you can find your most authentic pathway to happiness. And today's guest is someone that really understands the psychology of using music to find your pathway to happiness more deeply than anyone I know. He also happens to be my husband, and he has spent the vast majority of his life creating incredible music experiences and entertainment experiences that I can attest firsthand unlock incredible levels of emotion. It's a beautiful thing to see. And so I wanted to bring him onto the podcast to talk about how we can use music to unlock those emotions and our memories and our sense of belonging and community and just all of these beautiful things that you experience at a festival, at a music festival. And also because of the fact, and you can see from the T-shirt that I'm wearing, it's the perfect bridge between the world of his world, Shaun's world of festivals and music events, and the world that we're creating with Sunshine People, of which he's a partner, which is the world of wellness entertainment. So, hi.
Hello. Hello.
It's nice to see you here.
Nice to
Thank
see
you
you
for
too.
coming. Sorry, this might be awkward in the beginning. We saw each other just now at home making breakfast for the kids. So the questions that I want to ask you, obviously are all about what I said in the intro. So really kind of understanding how it is that you do what you do. Is there even any thought in terms of the emotions that you unlock behind what you do, or is it just something that comes naturally that you hadn't really given much thought to? For the last 25 years, I've attended these events with you, and I've watched, we've seen marriage proposals at your events. There are people that cry on the dance floor. There are people that scream. There are people that go crazy and rage and rave and have the best times. And it just the emotions that are unlocked through the music that is played are feelings of euphoria, complete connectivity to the people with you on the dance floor, and just feeling completely alive. So again, is there any thought to sort of the levels of neuroscience and psychology of what people feel when they attend your events? Is there any of that when you put together your programming? Is it something, as I said just now, that just kind of happens? And also, what has music taught you and what has eventing taught you about human emotion over the last 25 years of doing this?
Sure. Wow, love. Thank you. Thank you for the intro and the insight. I've done a lot of interviews over the years, but I feel like this one is cutting deep and asking, good questions that you are so intimately aware of because you've been involved in so many. But for me, music has always been my release. Even long before I met you and we had kids, music's always been my go-to, that I can find every type of emotion, peace, happiness, love, quiet, well, not quiet, obviously, but, with it quiet within my own space, within my own world, within my own imagination. Music's always evoked these different emotions for me. I think as far back as I can remember when I started out DJing, I would kind of get records from my father play them in my bedroom and my parents' house and just get locked into this music for hours and hours on end. And the different emotions and the different feelings that came from it was just something that I fell in love with. And it's just always been something that I've just carried on with me, that passion, that emotion throughout every step of my journey, whether it being DJing, promoting, and essentially bringing people together throughout shows and festivals. But at the center and at the core of it, it's the love and passion for music that's evoked all of these different emotions and all of these different feelings that have essentially, built up my career and who I am today, and, the mix of the different shows and the festivals and the clubs and all of these things, like I say, bringing people together. It's ultimately through the power of music, which leads into the power of culture, which then leads into, the power of emotion, and be it happiness and love and sadness sometimes as well, And, if I had to go back and, use some examples of just moments in music that have really kind of evoked special journeys and things like that, when we were going out and, kind of getting together, and, I toured Cascade, and he came out with that record, It's You, It's Me, and it was a kind of song that we played on repeat, and we both loved it, that it landed up on a CD, for our wedding CD, which, it's that one song that we can go back to at any time, and it'll evoke this beautiful emotion, It was the first time I heard Music Sounds Better With You by Stardust. My father came back from one of his travels in Europe, and I had this turntable at our house, and I just played the record on repeat, and just like this constant euphoria and love. It just didn't stop, to, you walking down the aisle on our wedding day and playing, When She Smiles, She Lights the Sky by, I think it was a Fortet remix, actually, which, many years later obviously landed up touring him, which was amazing. And I can, hear that song and go back to it at any time, And
it was playing at our kids' births as well.
Yeah, that's right. It was playing at our kids' births as well. So there's so many moments in music, and one kind of interesting, powerful, and when I touched on sadness, moments, which is quite profound, one of my favorite records, and it's a sad one, is Massive Attack, Teardrops. And I was recently reading the storyline of it, because it's this haunting and beautiful journey that, Elizabeth Fraser, the vocalist, the tone, the feeling in her voice and what was kind of projected on that record is just something that I've never been able to feel before, And I think, like I say, reading into the story of that, it's a very sad story. And again, you can hear it in her voice. Her husband actually passed away the day before, and she had a studio session with Massive Attack, and and it was either getting in there and doing that session or not, and she chose to do it, and even just the lyrics so haunting, which they kind of produced on the fly in that session, was teardrops on the fire, and you can just feel it, even from this piece of music being recorded in Brighton, thousands of kilometers away, 20, 30 years ago, you can still feel that emotion today, and that's the power of music, another great example, kind of more contextually from the stuff that I do, is I remember we were at home in Queens Road, and Duke Dumont came out with Ocean Drive, and the second I heard that record, I couldn't believe how good it was. I played it time and time again. I was like, it is so good. I have to book this artist. I have to get everybody to feel this energy, this emotional touch point right now that I'm feeling. And it was from listening to that song, which just got released on SoundCloud. It wasn't even an official release. I just got in touch with agents and managers like I have to book Duke Dumont. It must happen, and then booked him for the Corona Sunsets Festival a couple of months later,
And I clearly remember that crowd response when he played Ocean Drive that day. It was incredible.
Totally, and it was all again from the power of music. So there's so many moments in my life, but music has always been, the center point of everything that I've done, and I guess will continue to do. It's the lifeblood that runs through everything I do.
I think it's amazing because, if there's one thing that you and I are really intentional about, it's linking music to like our special moments. I think our kids have exactly the same thing, which I love. And it's something that we brought into Sunshine People as well. And it's really something that I'm hoping that we evolve significantly at the event, because it interests me so much how, to bring it back into context of you, and as I said, we do it now with our family, but you have always, every special moment, some of which you've just mentioned, every special memory, whether it be really happy or really sad, is always linked to a piece of music, always. There's always a piece of music that is kind of like the soundtrack to a moment. And I think that that's something that we should try and incorporate more into Sunshine People, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as to how. So for everyone listening, the way that we incorporated music in at Sunshine People is we created playlists, which will be made public. But then we also had a moment after the breathwork session that people could put on silent disco headphones, and we had different music channels playing through the headphones that you could flick between. And people were encouraged to try and you were dancing with your feet in the water, because we're on an island. You walk down into the river with the silent disco headphones on your head and flick through the channels and just had a moment, with your eyes closed, feet in the water, listening to beautiful music, of which there were 3 genres, and kind of, tried to identify which one triggered the most joy in you. And that was something that I was the most excited about. I really thought that it's because of how emotive music is and what a big part of our lives it is, and how it does make you feel so much in the moment. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, without giving anything away, for future events, like how, and because of everything you've just said about how powerful music is in terms of triggering emotion, and if our goal is to trigger emotion, what is the most powerful way that you think music can be used really to unlock emotion on a communal scale, on a personal scale, on a huge scale, on a small scale, in an event like Sunshine People?
I think, the thing with Sunshine People is that the type of feeling and energy and emotion that comes into the program, puts people in a state of joy, of peace, of calm, of serenity, of, opening their minds, going inward. That was the experience that I saw and I felt. And I think that people walking into the show, walking into Sunshine People, have that intention and that feeling as well. And I think, music is one of the senses and one of the most important in my regard. And it's a matter of how do you link those touch points to all of those different activations, all of those different feelings, all of those different moments. And it could be a personal journey, and that's why, like with the silent disco, you give the option for people to listen to music, but there could be an opportunity for people to create or curate their own journey as well. But, for me, one of the most beautiful moments for Sunshine People was your closing speech right at the end. And then, I was asked to play some music, which I did, and I chose Moloko, The Time Is Now. And, it starts out with this like beautiful guitar and then bass line, and the lyrics are about living in the moment. The time is now, it talks about sunshine. It talks about all of these beautiful feelings. But music is also about the space, and the timing, which is so crucial. So even when you finished your closing ceremony, it wasn't like
it was
play the song immediately. Let there be space. And there was 30 seconds of just silence. And then when that first, guitar riff came in, it was like you could see and feel like
goosebumps.
The spirits. You could, exactly, like me too. And you could feel the emotion collectively from everyone. So much like from a music festival and producing a show, by having the artists locked into 20,000 people in front of them, the DJ's job or the artist's job is so important to keep, a level of understanding of like he is building, or her, they're building emotion, and they're building feeling, and they're building a moment. It's like magical. I look at these artists as like wizards. It's the only form of magic in my mind that I can see, that's what music, and sound does. And, on a smaller scale, yet all relative, with Sunshine People, even though, it was 120, 130 people, it was that same connection. And it was that sound and that music and that space that did that. And, and I think when curating, music correctly to the right environment is when you spark all these different feelings and these emotions. You have a dinner party over friends at your house, you play a Paul Anka swing record because it suits the tone for a dinner. You can it's all about it. You go to the gym, and for me, to get going, you want energy. So for me, a drum and bass record is the best way to go, because it's high intensity and it triggers emotion, and from the emotion it triggers your mind, which triggers your body. So if you put in that kind of high energy, impact music, you'll get good results from it. There's just so many, emotions that you can talk about, the memories that it all just brings to life. My best mate, Maro, into West Coast hip hop, we can play a Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre record from the 90s, Tupac, and it's just, we feel like these punk teenagers, again, just, and it's the music that does that.
I think that you've kind of already answered this just now, but I want to ask sort of quite specifically, if you feel like you've answered it, just say so, but you've always said as a DJ now, not just as a event and music producer, or festival promoter and producer, you've always said as a DJ, you've got to know how to read your dance floor. So if you see, and you spoke about it now, the internationals that you tour and them being wizards and how they read the dance floor and build the emotion, do you consciously guide your set or change your set in that moment if you see something really resonating with your crowd? And again, this could be something that we bear in mind for programming Sunshine People moving forward. If you can see, because I would imagine it's not always the same moment that they respond to that you expect. Sometimes it could be different. Do you then change everything in that moment in order to build that emotion, or are you just kind of sticking to your guns? Because ultimately it is, right? It is really about wanting to get the most emotion out of your dance floor and your people.
It's a combination of timing and a combination of understanding your crowd, and yes, it's important to be connected as a DJ, as an artist, as an entertainer. At the end of the day, you are there to bring emotion, to bring people together, and to have them be a good time. If you're going to go in with a selfish approach and only play for yourself, it's a short-lived strategy. I think that it's important to be locked into your crowd, know what it is they want, and within just be able to move in different directions if you need to. At the end of the day, if you've got a full dance floor and you play some commercial music and that's working, you go a little bit more in that direction. If you want to go a bit darker, you try it. If it doesn't work, you move back. You've got to have the ability, and that comes with experience at the end of the day, So, it's. But as an entertainer, you need to entertain people. That's exactly what your job is. And whether it's entertaining them through high energy festivals and dancing and raving and hands up in the air and partying or whatever it is, or, feeding them, music like Sunshine People, you got to play to your crowd at the end of the day.
And what is the difference? Because I would imagine there's a huge difference between creating emotion for 20,000 people or 100 people. And I would think it's more difficult to do it for a smaller group, because the larger crowds, I would think, feed off each other. So firstly, what did you see at Sunshine People in that regard that maybe is different to what you see when you're at Ultra or Corona Sunsets? And then secondly, what do you think changes psychologically when emotion is experienced collectively at that large scale versus at a small scale? I mean, on a smaller scale, I would imagine it's more of like a bonding experience, or do you think it's the same experience that people have?
I think the major difference in a big festival like Ultra or Corona is the technical production behind the sound, stage, lighting, fireworks, lasers, LED. Everything is, massive and over the top, so you're not just experiencing the music, you're experiencing a full live show, and the feeling that people get collectively out of that is just energy and euphoria, whatever it is, at the highest and most intense level possible. And there's nothing better than a big break of a record that comes in and you see 20,000 people just kind of like hands up in the air, and it's that vibration and that feeling that is just kind of, if I see music in colors, it's just bright and powerful and red and purple and just energy, And then you take, something like Sunshine People, where you're relying on more intimate experiences. People can talk to one another. You can hear their voice. You're in nature. You're surrounded by, just the beauty around you. And it's a lot more of a softer connection, and it's a lot more intimate, and, therefore needs to play to your crowd, so to speak, So to play an acoustic record of a guitar and a strum that doesn't require sound, stage, lighting, production, you almost, your ears, you're almost more acute to feeling just that strum of a guitar, as opposed to, a big festival, you need the full layer of production, and hence the music is just so much more because it's going in sync with the lighting and the stage and the fireworks and everything. So it's horses for courses at the end of the day. It's playing the right music for the right feeling, for the right emotion, for the right crowd, and the different emotions that it connects with are, bonding is a good word, because I think it is all about bonding, whether it's 100 people or it's 25,000 people. The bond is that moment, and what people will take away from each experience is ultimately something that they'll cherish forever. And I think that that's ultimately why we do what we do, is to create moments and memories and, joy for people in different ways, shapes and forms.
How do you've got a highly stressed work life, but also we have 3 kids, we have a highly stressed at times, also incredible home life. And obviously that results in stress peaking and, moments of things feeling a little bit too much. How do you use music and recommend that people use music almost as a psychological tool to assist either in when you want to just feel really happy, or also when you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and you actually need something to calm you down? Is it something that you do proactively and intentionally, or again, is it something that kind of just happens and then you feel better and you don't really put much thought to it? Because I feel like there are a lot of people out there that probably do that. I remember as a teenager going through a breakup, and you'd listen to that sad song that would just make you cry over and over, and in hindsight that's giving you the emotional benefit of getting the sadness out, but there was no thought behind it. It's interesting.
I think it's recently, as you know, we bought Tommy a home pod for home.
Tommy is our 8-year-old.
Tommy's our 8-year-old son. Yeah. And, what he's now got me addicted to every night before I go to bed, or before we go to bed, is to play rain sounds. And this home pod sits next to me and he'll say, "Hey Siri, play rain sounds." And the second that the rain sounds start playing, I'm out.
Yeah.
And I'm calm, and I'm just like totally like in that. And the doom scrolling and the million messages coming in and all of that stuff almost just seems to like stop. And it's almost that bridge that I needed from the intense day of work, of life, of kids, of everything, to just put the phone down, lie down, play the music, and it's almost just, like I say, that like middle ground into sleep, into REM, into, you know, kind of having a good night's sleep. So, you know, I think more moments like that help. And I mean, whenever I've got a chance to listen to music, I do my best to do it. I love discovering new music.
And you DJ as often as you can.
I play as often as I can. And I think it's also very important, you know, there's some memes out there that, you know, cherish the people who introduce you to new music, you know, and I've got a couple of very close friends who are amazing taste makers musically that will send me music, and, you know, and I will listen and I will get stuck into it. And for me, there's just so many messages in it as well, you know. I mean, Josh Giorgio, who is one of my best friends, and he's the ultimate tastemaker, in my opinion, musically, you know. And, you know, it was we were going through COVID, life was tough, and anyway, he introduced me to a Bob Andy record, who's an old reggae artist, called Life. That was the song. And there's a very simple message in it, you know, the more you give to life, the more you're going to get from life. But it's just done in this beautiful, you know, reggae way. And it's a song that I can play at any point and just feel good, and just, you know, and it's a moment of even teaching the kids, and I play it to the kids, and you can even go up to the kids and say, the more you give to life, the more you're going to get from life. And that's the power of music, you know. It's
Agreed.
Yeah.
Final question. If listeners want to build their own happiness playlist and they don't have access to the Joshes of the world and all of these tastemakers, and they want that playlist that is just going to trigger good, positive, joyful emotion in them, where would you recommend that they start?
We've just started a Sunshine People playlist on Spotify, and we'll constantly be updating it, and I think you should go there because there's lots of good stuff on there.
Thank you, my love.
Pleasure, my love.
So, yeah, I think that the honesty and insight into what you've been doing for so long is really interesting, because I think so much of it has been instinctive, and it's so interesting to discuss it with this lens of the benefits of you know, what a powerful reminder it is that there are so many benefits that we get on a daily basis, whether it be on a dance floor, in a festival, at a movement class, at a wellness event. We're having all of these moments, and a lot of the time we're not actually really thinking through the benefits of these moments and what they're giving to us, especially when it comes through a channel like music that is so emotional and so personal, but we don't really think about and understand or overthink the benefits that it's giving to us. And it really is a tool, I think, that can be used to help people to connect, to release, to feel emotion, to, you know, get super, super joyful and high, and also get super, super inward and process, which is great. I think that it's exciting that we're working on something like Sunshine People together with this lens, because I think it's something that we can use very intentionally, and I hope that everyone that experiences Sunshine People understands that everything from the programming to the music is being chosen with this intention in mind, that there is an emotional release and there is an objective behind it, not just because it sounds great or looks good on the content, but it really is helpful emotionally. So, it's your reminder that joy is not just something that happens frivolously. It's not just something that happens accidentally. It's something that we can really work proactively to feel. And obviously, as I keep on saying, that is the goal. So thank you very much for listening. And Shaun, thank you for being here.
That's my love.
And that's it. See you next time.